The hot stove just got even hotter. We have a blockbuster trade, kind of. I'm not sure if you would consider Teoscar Hernandez a superstar, but in my opinion, the Mariners just got better. So we're going to go ahead and break that down in just a moment, because before we do that, we do have an update on the NLCS MVP, a superstar in his own right, Bryce Harper. He is slated to undergo surgery on his damaged UCL. So he experienced that back in May, which is one of the reasons why I love the universal DH. He would have missed all of 2022 essentially if the universal DH did not come to the NL, but that's a different story for a different day. We know that his arm is going to require surgery, and we don't know if it's Tommy John or if there's some other corrective surgery that they can use to mitigate Tommy John, because as you can see, the most recent example of a superstar undergoing Tommy John, it was Shohei Ohtani. So again, Shohei Ohtani, he's a two-way superstar, so this affected him in a multitude of reasons, because one, he can't pitch, and two, he can't hit. Well, actually he could. He got the surgery on October 1st, and then about 8 months later, I can't do the math in my head, but on May 7th, 2019, pretty much the beginning of the season, he was back in there, he was hitting, and he was healthy enough to actually be the designated hitter. So if everything goes to plan, if Bryce Harper has Tommy John, he probably will be back in June at the very earliest, in my opinion, which really sucks, because Bryce Harper, I believe that he's going to be a future Hall of Famer, but he's not going to get to 3,000 base hits or any of the other big milestones like 600 home runs if he keeps getting injured. And most of it isn't his fault, like tripping on a base or getting his hand broken by Blake Snell. But I just wanted to update you guys. Bryce Harper should be on the shelf for the foreseeable future. Whether it's Tommy John or another corrective surgery, he's going to be missing some time in 2023. Now, speaking of 2023, both the Blue Jays and the Mariners are going to be looking a little bit different, because last night a report came out that the Blue Jays, they dropped Raimel Tapia. They also dropped Bradley Zimmer. So you knew something was happening behind the scenes, and behind the scenes, we saw it come to light. Official. We've acquired, talking from the Blue Jays perspective, we've acquired Eric Swanson and Adam Mako. Two relief pitchers, or two pitchers for Teoscar Hernandez, who might be the best hitter in baseball when it comes to hitting left-handed pitchers. And you know where that comes in handy? Don't the Angels have like 4 or 5 left-handed starters in that rotation? Yes, they do. So Teoscar, we know that he is not the best defensive outfielder, actually one of the worst, but he still had a near 3 WAR while being one of the worst defenders in baseball, because he's an offensive juggernaut. If we take a look at his career, I mean, since the start of 2021, he has a 132 OPS plus, he has 73 home runs, and actually, if you take a look, so he has 26 home runs in 2019, 32 in 2021, and 25 in 2022, just a season ago. He is one of 2 outfielders in all of the American League to have 25 plus home runs in each of the last 3 full seasons. The only other guy that's done that is Aaron Judge. So the Mariners are getting a full-fledged major league hitter, but again, if we take a look at his defensive WAR, I don't really truly think that defensive WAR is the end-all be-all, but it's nothing but negative, so he is going to be a liability in left field, but you cannot take anything away from his offensive prowess. He is an extra base machine, and just to prove to you guys that he is going to match the Angels and Framber Valdez, he is going to fit in just nicely in the American League West. He has a 980 OPS versus lefties, at least if we're talking about 2022. So again, I can't take anything away from Teoscar Hernandez, the hitter, aside from the fact that he is aging and he's a free agent after 2023. So giving away Eric Swanson for a 1-year rental, is it worth it? As we can see, if you're not familiar with Baseball Savant, this is basically a graph that shows you if a player is good or not, and if it's showing a lot of red, that means they're elite at those things. So Eric Swanson is elite at almost everything. The only thing that isn't upper echelon is that fastball velocity. He tops out at like 93, 94. He made his debut against Cleveland a few years ago, and I thought that he looked fantastic, but he strikes out 34% of the hitters. He only walks 5% of them. He has a devastating, almost Shohei Ohtani-esque splitter, at least in my opinion. So Eric Swanson is going to do wonders in that Blue Jays bullpen, and that's exactly what they're looking for. The Blue Jays, they have Orvelis Martinez. They have a couple other guys that can come up and play second base, just in case they want to move Kevin Biggio to the outfield. But if the Blue Jays traded away Teoscar Hernandez to the Mariners, what does that mean for Jesse Winker, who is currently the left fielder for the Mariners, who had a down season, even though a 344 on base percentage is still pretty good? good. He had a 103 OPS plus, but if we take a look at the seasons prior, I mean, all the way back to his rookie season. So in his first, let's just call it 4.5 years, he had a 130 OPS plus. That is really good. And almost 385 on base percentage. Yo, Jesse Winker is him. But last year, he took some steps back. He did get on base a lot by taking the walk, but the power was down. I mean, in 460 at-bats, he had 15 doubles and 14 home runs, so the power, just like Nick Castellanos, it was absolutely zapped. So I'm not saying they're a product of what is it called? Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, but they might be a product of the Cincinnati air in that stadium. It is a hitter's paradise in Cincinnati. We know that. So Jesse Winker, he might be out of a job. Do we think that he maybe goes to the White Sox, or does he actually become expendable? Maybe they'll move him to designated hitter. I have no idea what the future holds for Jesse Winker, but he might be expendable at the moment. Now, because the Blue Jays traded away an outfielder and they don't really have someone to fill in that hole, they're actually looking at Brandon Nimmo, who is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated players in all of Major League Baseball. He would fit in perfectly because the Blue Jays, not saying that they're the 2021 Yankees, but those Yankees, they were right-handed dominant, and the Blue Jays, they're kind of facing that same issue with Bo Bichette, Whit Merrifield, you name it. They have right-handed hitters all over the place, so that would give them some lineup flexibility, as well as someone who can steal 20, 25 bags and plays Gold Glove defense in center field. So Brandon Nimmo, in my opinion, would be a slam dunk signing for the Blue Jays, and now that they've freed up money, I fully believe that they should be in the top 3 or 5 teams in the running for Brandon Nimmo. Now, that pretty much does it for Teoscar Hernandez, the Mariners, everything like that. Erik Swanson is a dog out the bullpen. Teoscar is going to be a menace in the batter's box. And the Mariners, they have a really deep lineup right now. Eugenio Suarez is back to being himself. They have guys like J-Rod, who just won the Rookie of the Year. They have Jared Kelenic, who hopefully is going to bounce back, or maybe he's now expendable. The Mariners were already fairly promising. I know they got swept by the Astros, but you could say that it was almost a gentleman's sweep because they made every single game pretty close. Now, moving on, that blockbuster trade, if you want to call it, that is done with. This trade really annoyed me. Nolan Jones, one of my favorite players in baseball, he has been traded to the Rockies. I know we talked about the Rockies earlier, the fact that they pretty much won that Randall Grichuk trade. Nolan Jones, a power threat, is going to the Rockies in exchange for Juan Brito. And if we take a look at Juan Brito, like we know what Nolan Jones has to bring. He's going to strike out a lot, but he's going to be an extra base machine. Juan Brito, he is an infielder. Yeah, because Cleveland needs more infielders. This trade is just so stupid to me, but it could be hinting at something bigger, so I'll get to that in a moment. But Brito, he hit 286 with 11 home runs, and he only struck out 14% of the time. In low A ball, he's 21 years old, so maybe they move him to a corner outfield spot, and then maybe they move on from Straw and they put Stephen Kwan in center field. That would be my master plan, but it really hurt my feelings knowing that Nolan Jones, all the work that he put in. The Guardians have so many infield prospects that it almost just makes me think, well, they have to get moved. We haven't even brought up Tyler Freeman. So if you guys have not subscribed and hit those bells, I feel like a big time Cleveland trade is about to happen. And in my opinion, my best assumption is that it's going to be Sean Murphy going from the A's to the Guardians in exchange for a plethora of infield talent. Now, moving on, the Padres have signed Nick Martinez. Nick Martinez gets $26 million over 3 seasons. I mean, as you can see, that 4.03 ERA was in large part because he made 10 of his 12 appearances as starts. And then we can see later on when he was in the bullpen in 35 appearances, he had a 2.74 ERA. So he is much better out of the bullpen. There is the update on Mr. Nick Martinez and the Padres. And then kind of the final little thing I want to talk about, Aristides Aquino, the Punisher as they call him. He had a 63 OPS plus, which is borderline horrific, but back in 2019, I mean, this dude had 19 home runs in 56 games, and if we take a look at this, you guys don't remember, the Punisher had 13 home runs in 27 career games. That I think is an MLB record. I don't know if he broke Rhys Hoskins' record or if Rhys Hoskins broke his record. Regardless, I mean, the only really positive from Aquino was that he played pretty stellar defense in 2022. He's got a decent glove. He has decent speed as well, but the thing that makes him special, this cannon. So Aquino, he is going to be good wherever he goes, at least defensively, in my opinion, with that arm specifically. With the glove, I guess you can kind of call him mid, but that pretty much does it for today's little hot stove recap. Bryce Harper, he is going to be undergoing Tommy John or another corrective surgery. Teoscar is going to the Mariners in exchange for Erik Swanson and a guy named Adam Mako, and then aside from that, Nolan Jones and a couple other smaller players, they're on the move. Thank you guys for watching, and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest offseason news.